Hey, I'm Nate.
I'm Colin. You said nail an intro, man.
I
Before this,
know.
you cut my little dance move out.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. And this is still Pew Pew time. So today we're talking about season 3, episode 4 of The Mandalorian. Overall thoughts, Colin. What'd you think of it? That's way too loud.
Yeah, that's very loud. Well, whatever. It's a freebie.
All right.
It was a short episode, 30 minutes. But
A
I
little too
still
short.
think even in shorter episodes kind of can sometimes feel like fillers, but I don't think we got a filler. I think it was still advancing the story, and we got a lot out of it, even though it was a shorter episode. So I thought it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think there have been a lot of people who threw the word filler around. I don't think we've really had any horrible filler episodes yet. I do think that there have been some, the thing is, as this show continues, it's a broader and broader series of characters, right? And they're telling stories that aren't exclusive to this character and this character. So it's going to happen. It's going to be, we're going to have episodes that are a little less about Grogu, a little less about Mando. But eventually, I think, do come together and help the story overall. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so let's get into it.
So this episode starts off back on I forget the planet, but where the Mandalorian are currently located.
Yeah, where the covert is. I feel stupid. I should remember that. I still haven't looked it up.
Yeah, I don't know if they've actually mentioned it in the show yet.
Yeah,
but,
I bet it's out there somewhere. But yeah, all that I can remember is that this is where the Mandalorian covert is right now. So
yeah. So we open up to that they're outside and training is happening. So like all levels of the covert are training. So like primarily the young ones are in focus, but I think everyone's training, and like the more higher ups are like watching and observing and stepping in to like
right, they're teaching.
I guess train. Yeah, teaching. I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where it starts off.
Yeah, and again, we're gonna make a concerted effort because our last episode was over an hour. Part of that was because of technical difficulties, but I think we're going to try to keep this concise. So I gotta try to keep my comments to a minimum. But like I've always got 100 comments. So one of the things I thought it was interesting was that these guys are just like firing their blasters out over the lake and like shooting rockets off and stuff like that, just like into the lake. It just seems so funny to me. I'm like, what are they even aiming at? How do they know if they hit it? What?
Yeah, that, and then I also thought in the back of my head of like that little drag or like water creature thing's going to come back. Yeah, I was like, that thing's going to come back if you disrupt it.
I know. Well, I think they killed that one. I assume they killed that one.
I'm sure
almost certainly
more. Well, there is more.
Right? Which
yeah,
we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of fun little moments in this. There was the kid. I believe it's the kid that we saw like speak the creed here a couple episodes ago, right?
I think it was the first episode.
Oh yeah, you're probably right. Just before Mando flies in with the N1 and blasts the giant alligator. The kid he's training whatever, and they Mando brings Grogu up to fight him, right? And it was kind of weird because like I guess I hadn't thought about it, but eventually he's gonna have to be like a Mandalorian like kid, right? And
he
go through all the training from
forever.
Like, birth. Yeah.
He
can't be a baby for more than 50-ish years. But I was sort of unsure how that was going to go. It was sort of interesting. They shoot paintballs at each other, whatever. But the other kid is kind of a little jerk and makes a comment about like, oh, he's too little, like, and
he can't speak or whatever.
Yeah, what Amanda said, like one does not speak unless one knows. Which, man, I'll tell you, if more of us lived by that creed, we'd be a better world. But, man, that was a fun moment. And then the kid's like, well, I know. And Din goes, well, perhaps this is a lesson for you then. I love it, man. I love that, like, back and forth and everything, But, yeah, so they have their little thing. Grogu does his jumping over him. That still feels awkward to me, right? I love that they're doing practical effects. But, like, his arms don't even go up, right? Like, everyone when you jump, you like you use your momentum, you move your arms, whatever, get your body weight moving around, and he doesn't do that, and so it just looks like somebody's just like, it's like what was the bottle flip challenge thing that everybody was doing a few years ago. Like it just looks like he's just kind of like me,
Yeah, I kind of feel like I hope they
little
can figure
demonstration.
out. Yeah, right. Live
He's just kind of like,
demonstration.
meh. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. It did look awkward. I kind of didn't spend too much thinking about it because like I want to
Yeah,
believe it, but like yeah, it looks like a
it's a
puppet.
small thing. It's a small thing.
Yeah,
It's not a major criticism. It's just kind of with all that they're doing and like the level of detail that they put into so many things. It's funny that every so often something with the Grogu puppet feels a little awkward, but we'll
yeah,
just keep
yeah.
pretending
Well,
like
just
he's an actor and
yeah,
move on from that.
yeah. That's true. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. So the little kid that gets defeated by a baby, the kid that
a 50-year-old baby.
50-year-old baby, uh, ends up getting kidnapped by this.
Yeah,
I think we end up. They call it a raptor. Is that what
yeah,
they call it?
yeah. Like a
It's just like a
raptor
flying
being a
dragon.
bird of prey. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which brings another again small thing to the front. Uh, why are there so many animals, so many new beasts of burden in Star Wars since Disney took over, right? Like, I think I could probably count on one hand the number of like crazy big creatures that you see in the original trilogy. Obviously they're more in Clone Wars. Maybe it's a Dave Filoni influence then, you know what I mean? The kind of like, I don't hate it. I love the idea of a galaxy of challenges and monsters and everything. So it's not just like every planet we go to is peaceful and the only thing we have to fear is the Empire. Whatever. Like I like that there are things like this, but it is weird that like we're on episode 4 and this is the third enormous creature that they've introduced for the first time.
Yeah. I think it also could be a byproduct of like TV writing. Like the TV format is a little bit more like you have time to fill, and so you have to
Yeah,
kind of throw in more to the script, whereas a movie's a little bit more straight to the point, and you can kind of,
sure.
obviously the original trilogy they had creatures that they fought, but if you really look at the whole movie saga, creatures only really truly like they use for like a transportation method. It's not like they're
Yeah,
fighting a creature mainly.
there are a few instances like Luke versus the Rancor and Luke versus the
Rancor was, yeah, that's a
Empire when he gets captured by the Wamp. I'm gonna say
oh
Wampa.
the
Wampa.
bomb Wampa. Yeah, I'll just call
Wampa.
it a
Yes, the
abominable
big
snowman.
abominable snowman. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway,
That's true.
I think it makes sense. You mentioned TV, and that also makes sense just because in an episodic natured thing, it's not one long story. They have to have sort of like climaxes and points of great interest and challenges along the way that aren't like the main story only. It makes sense to have sort of episodic things
Yeah.
like that. But all right, let's move on. What's next?
No, yeah, let's do it. So the kid gets kidnapped, and in that moment in the episode, there's kind of two, like in the timeline, there's two things that happen, but they show us obviously one at a time. The kid gets kidnapped, a group with like Mando and Bo. I think Bo Katan's leading this group to go rescue the kid. They basically tried to go rescue the kid with jetpacks, and then it didn't work, so then they took the ship.
Yeah, they
Grogu
ran out
stayed
of fuel,
behind. They ran out of fuel, yeah.
which was
Grogu
weird.
stayed
I don't
behind.
remember that ever happening, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I guess we don't ever see them going for that.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Distance,
It's just kind of one of those like it was necessary for the story to move forward. So
right.
yeah.
And then also the Grogu stayed back. I think the armor. I don't know if you have it in your notes, but the armor said something like you can't basically go into battle just yet.
You're still a stupid.
So he stays
baby,
back.
Grogu.
Yeah, exactly. Stupid 50-year-old baby.
But yeah, no, and it was sort of weird because like it's really like a limited number of people that Mando is trusted to watch after Grogu. You know what I mean? So like this is a sort of whether it's expressing trust in the armor and the clan of Mandalorians in the way here, or whether it's growth of Grogu to sort of take care of himself a little more, or some combination of both that they're showing us here. It was an interesting choice that like he just leaves him behind, like not a worry. He just takes off. It's crazy. But
well, I think part of it too is he's subscribed to that like religion or whatever. So I imagine it makes it easier to trust those that are also a part of it, even though
for sure,
it's probably not always guaranteed. But
right, yeah, he there's there's an interesting point there too where you mentioned that she told him that he's too young or whatever, too small, whichever it was, to go join the hunt. She does say, you have a lot to learn if you're going to be a Mandalorian. You know what I mean? And that's an interesting point. You and I talked about, like, I'd forgotten. I hadn't been thinking about that he's actually going to have to do some training like the other, whatever, baby Mandalorians.
So after the split up, they actually focus first on the armor and Grogu. So they go into, I guess she starts walking into the cave where she goes and forges the armor, and she's I forget the line she says, but she's basically like, "Come on, Grogu, we have a lot to learn," or something.
Yeah,
and
she calls him Grogu. It's kind of fun to hear people call him that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
She's basically foraging him like a little tiny chest plate. It's very cute and adorable. It's a little tiny circle. But while she's doing that,
she called it a rondelle.
That's what she called it? Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it had a name for it.
I'm trying to remember. I was thinking that was like a shield or something. I think that's an actual piece of medieval armor. We should look it up. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead with what you were saying.
No, so as she's kind of wielding that little, what did you call it, a rondelle?
Yeah, this is a circular piece of metal used for protection as part of a harness or plate armor. Yeah. So that makes sense. Yeah, I think it kind of went over like a joint or something, like it covered your armpit or something like that. Because flexible
for Grogu, it's his entire chest because he's
covering 90% of him. Yeah,
so cute.
That's great.
So yeah, I think she mentions while she's foraging it that there could, actually I want this to be a question because I thought I heard her say, like, you might start seeing things, like as she's wielding it. Or like foraging it, like you might start having like that's what I thought, like preference the flashbacks, like he's starting to like, but maybe I totally made that in my head. I don't know.
I don't remember that. It's possible that happened, but like once we started seeing the flashes of Order 66 for the 1 billionth time in Star Wars, I pretty quickly got distracted. I don't know. It's possible that she said something. I don't remember it though.
It's also a great possibility that I was imagining it. But in any case, Grogu starts to have flashbacks towards when he was a little kid, or I guess even more of a baby in Coruscant, and Order 66 is happening. And they've shown snippets of this scene, the elevator scene specifically, but we never get to see who actually rescues him until this episode.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, the title of this episode is... The Foundling, right? This is the episode is titled The Foundling, which is interesting to me because I assumed it meant Grogu, but it also could mean the Foundling that got captured. It's this weird, like, maybe it's both, but it's an interesting title because it's about two young Mandalorians on their separate paths. But yeah, I assumed you'd be pretty excited to see the Order 66 in the Clone War era and Episode 3 timeline again.
I mean, absolutely. Should we reveal who rescues?
Well, that's okay. Yeah, before we say anything, and I'm sure most of the people, if not all, who are listening to this have already seen the episode. It's not like it's a surprise, but I wondered if it'd be someone we knew. There have been some questions that maybe it was Quinlan Voss, but you remember him, right?
Of course. He was in the Clone.
I think he had some like face paint kind of and stuff.
He's a sweet looking character.
Yeah, he's kind of a loose cannon, and there's at least one episode in the Clone Wars of him and Obi-Wan, and like their approaches are very different. Obi-Wan is much more meditative and like, let's make a plan. And Quinlan Voss is like, whoa, let's go. Like he's always like jumping into danger and that sort of thing. A little more of an action hero, maybe. But yeah, there were a lot of theories. I didn't really have a good theory myself, and people were watching the first flashbacks, which I think were season 2 that we saw of Grogu remembering some of these things. Maybe as he's sitting with Luke, I can't remember. Or I guess that would be Book of Boba Fett. I can't remember, but we've seen those bits a little bit before, and I know that a lot of people had a lot of theories. But why don't you tell us who it was, Colin?
Okay, so I feel like I hyped this up. So the exciting part of it is actually who plays it. The character itself, I feel like, is the actor. Thank you. I feel like the character itself, I don't actually really know.
It's a brand new character. I think,
yeah. The character is Kelleran Beq, I think is how you pronounce it.
Yeah, I think Kelleran, I think is what they were saying.
But the actor is the voice actor of Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah. Whose name is what?
So
I didn't actually write it down.
I actually didn't write down his actor name, but I did write this down.
Yeah, it is the same. Wait. It is the same guy. Yeah, I think it was.
Well, I can Google it real quick.
I think that actor got kind of a hard time. It wasn't really fair.
Ahmed Best.
Yes. Jar Jar Binks was, of course, not a fan favorite character for a lot of people. It was he was certainly divisive in the Star Wars community, even now. But like the actor, did a great job of bringing a bizarre character to life. And it's like that guy shouldn't get the hate here for this. So anyway, it was, if nothing else, heartwarming to see, like, let's let him play like a character that everybody's going to appreciate.
A normal character,
now, right? Yeah.
But so also, like, I've seen parts of the BTS in the prequels, especially Episode 1, and he just seems like a genuine person.
Nice guy. Yeah.
And so I'm super excited that he is this new character. And I had to put this in my notes because everyone's thinking this. He probably thought Misa saves Grogu.
You gotta do the voice though.
Yeah, you do the voice. You're more of. Okay,
we're gonna move on from this point. Anyway, it was a cool moment. I was glad, and but he's waiting. Like, they send him to this character, right? To I've already forgotten his name. Kelleran. They send him down the elevator, and Kelleran is there, and he fights off some clones, and then the two of them get into a speeder. Looks like a speeder bike with a sidecar, actually, and takes off. And there's this chase through Coruscant. You had an interesting point about Coruscant, right?
I think they reused shots from Revenge of the Sith, if that's the point you're referring to. Yeah,
well, it was. I didn't hear that or see that or anything. So is that for sure true, or is that just a theory?
I can't confirm it. It looks like some shots
it definitely
identical,
looks similar. Yeah.
I'd have to confirm it, but
right.
Yeah.
Well, that chase reminded me a lot of Episode 2 with, you remember, they're chasing down Sam Wessel. Is that her name? The assassin that Jango Fett hires.
Yeah, to
changeling, whatever. Yep. Yeah, no, that was it was sort of cool and really like nostalgic, for the prequel trilogy, which is not something I'm usually that nostalgic for. But it was pretty cool. But I also noticed, well, just a small thing. I'm pretty sure that's the same pram floating bassinet egg thing that he was in when Din rescued him from the Nikto, like, mercenaries or whatever they were in season 1. I'm pretty sure. I can't say 100%. I need to see them side by side, but it looked a lot like it. And I thought, was he in that same basket for, like, whatever it's been, 25, 30 years? It seems crazy.
It's probably stinky.
Yeah. Well, obviously it was a little beat up and everything. I probably shouldn't even say anything without, like, really double checking, but it looked like the same one to me.
It was white. That's all I remember.
That's true. That's definitely true.
Well, because it's silver now.
Oh yeah, right? Well, he's in it. He's in, like, the third one since the beginning of the Mandalorian. So third or more, I don't know. But yeah, it keeps getting destroyed or left behind during a shootout or something.
Yeah.
But eventually, the two of them get to a landing platform. Did you have something you wanted to say about that?
No. Yeah, you can go.
Well, I didn't recognize a landing platform. Were you saying that it was the same one from? Was it the same one from one of the prequels?
Oh, I don't know that. I was just my notes say Naboo cruiser exclamation point exclamation
Okay.
point exclamation point because I
Well,
was
that's
excited to see
definitely
more
true.
prequel stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we'll skip what I just said. I
Oh,
apparently
you're talking about
misunderstood your notes.
the Monument Plaza,
Sure.
like the mountaintop. That's what you're referring to?
I did notice that. Are you talking about where they were in the last episode of The Mandalorian with the little chunk of the
Yeah.
mountaintop? Oh, I didn't
Yes.
notice that.
That's
That was in it? Oh, that's cool.
yeah. Yeah. So that was my sorry. I thought you were talking about
I
specifically
missed
the
it.
platform where the Naboo cruiser.
Yeah,
is
well, I
on.
didn't
But
understand what you were saying by Monument Plaza, so yeah. No, but
okay. Yeah. So
that's cool.
they're on the little bike still thing, the whatever they called it, this little bike with a little sidecar,
Yeah.
and they like kind of it's the scene where they're kind of like crashing into the ground, and that's Monument Plaza, which in the episode previously we saw Dr. Pershing and geez, I'm already forgetting the person he was with name. I'm so bad at remembering, but
Elia Kane.
Yeah, and they're walking around,
Temptress.
they're licking those like lollipop thingies, and they make a whole scene around that like little mountaintop. That's like the only like mountain like nature thing that has made it this far to the surface or whatever, or where everyone lives. And they almost crash into it. So this is also like long, before. So it's just it's a good way to
twice.
Yeah.
I watched
it's
it
a small
twice
detail.
and I didn't notice that. That's great. That's a great detail to catch.
Yeah, but it's cool to they tie in just like, I mean,
right. A connection.
You can assume
like, from one episode to the next, it's like 30 years apart or something like that.
Yeah.
But that landmark ties it all together. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, the Naboo cruiser.
You mentioned the Naboo cruiser, and I was pretty psyched when I said that too. Again, I'm not the biggest prequel fan in the world. Those ships were always so cool, though. Those super chrome Naboo ships. I think the one from the episode 1 is the coolest of all of them. But this is the one that was in 2 and 3 both. I can't remember. So all right. Let's just walk through it. They crash land, and they're walking up and they're meeting with these Naboo guards, right? And a gunship, a Republic gunship, comes up and lands, and the clone troopers come out and they immediately start opening fire, and the royal guards, whoever they are, I don't remember if the queen has a specific name at this point in the trilogy. The queen of Naboo, who is no longer Amidala at this point. Amidala is either dead or soon to be dead, because I don't know exactly what point of the invasion this is. If this is where Anakin's already killed the younglings and moved on and everything. But anyway, she is not going to be part of this, right? Because I assume she's gone. But I'm curious to know if this is going to lead to another familiar face. If this is going to be somebody we know. If it's, can't remember who the captain is that takes over for Captain Panaka from episode 1. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's the guy with the eye patch, Like I wonder if he'll be here. But again, I think he was involved with like the Queen's guard or something, and so he might. I mean, there's a chance he's on the ship or something like that. But we knew somebody had to get Grogu out of there, and we know that, Amidala and what's his name? Who the guy who he's a senator from Alderaan. What's his name?
Oh,
Bail Organa, right?
Yeah, Bail Organa. Yeah.
Who adopts Princess Leia and everything. Is he going to be involved in this, like smuggling Grogu out somehow? You know what I mean? Like, we only know of so many people who are part of this like early resistance group, right? So I wonder if they'll bring somebody more familiar to us at some point. But the fact that it's a Naboo cruiser is really cool.
Yeah, and that would make sense to me because I think at the end of episode 3, Bail Organa meets up with Yoda, and I think Obi-Wan meets them, and so like,
yeah,
it would make sense that they talk about, hey, we have to go like capture these, or make sure these little Jedis are safe.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was, a really interesting tie-in. And again, leaving us on a bit of a cliffhanger. I wonder if it'll be another season or two before we see who actually gets them, or if it'll come up soon. I don't know.
I'm excited.
Cool.
I feel like, it's alluding to we're going to get more of his backstory conclusion,
right, for sure.
It's going to be awesome. But yeah,
they've done a lot. And with a show like this, like I said, there's so many different storylines and plots moving this way and that way. And they've opened a lot of doors, right, in terms of storyline. Like, I'm wondering if Grief Karga and his background and these pirates is still going to be a significant part of this, because we're in episode 4. We're a third of the way through the season. They've already accomplished more than I thought they would with the Mandalorian storyline. Like, I thought that at the end of the season he'd be going to the mines of Mandalore and bathing in the waters and discovering a mythosaur, which again, a lot of people predicted, myself included. But I was really excited to see that play out so early, because there are all these possibilities now. You know what I mean? We're going to see more than I assumed we would see by the end.
Totally.
So this background is opening more doors. Who knows where we're going with this? But yeah, what's the next thing?
Yeah, I think we got the rescue scene, and then we'll end it with Bo Katan and the armor conversation. But I don't think too much to talk about with the rescue scene. There's like a few key points. But obviously, they go off to rescue the little kid that gets captured by the raptor. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I think one point that we find out is when they're in the midst of rescuing him on the net. So they basically climb this like mountain.
The
there's like the nest.
Yeah.
There's like a big bird's nest on top. Paz Vizsla goes and like kind of jumps the gun and just goes straight into like rescuing, because they see a little Mandalorian helmet first, which makes you think, is it his? But
no, it certainly wasn't the right color.
Yeah,
but you do wonder how many. You do wonder how many of these kids got killed by this thing before they managed to track it down.
Yeah, exactly. But while he's like kind of lunging and kind of just going for it, I'm actually mixing up scenes. I apologize, but he lunges, and then these little baby birds come out. Basically, the raptors.
We say little baby birds, but like they're the size of like
the giant
construction equipment. They're huge.
Yeah. Which means the raptor is like 20 times bigger than that.
Right. They were big babies, but
so they go they go and fight the babies and what. Is there a point you want? Sorry.
No. Well, you started to talk about it. But like they're getting ready to like sneak up on it, and Paz Vizsla kind of jumps the gun a little bit. He goes like, "All right, no, nothing's here. Like, let's go get him." Yeah. And Bo is like, wait till we've cleared the area. And what does he say?
He's my son.
Yeah, he's my son. And yeah, so Din and Bo share a look. Apparently, nobody knew that. But he goes out, he runs, and it turns out, I think the heat signature, in fact, was the babies, not his son, who, like they were
the bird
trying to
babies.
track down. Yeah. And so they come after him for a moment, and then, he kind of like swings his knife around a little bit in defense and hides under, whatever, a piece of tumbleweed.
Well, he covers himself.
Yeah. Maybe that's a smart thing to do. I don't know. But the mama comes back and lands and starts trying to regurgitate the young Mandalorian who they were there to rescue, right? For the babies.
It was in his throat. Yeah, exactly. That was a little disturbing.
Again, science fiction. I can't be too worried about details here. But the reason that mama birds do that is because they partially digest these things, and they cough up this thing because the baby birds can't digest all these things completely by themselves at this age, right? So when he comes out and he's like untouched, like I was kind of like, oh well, but who cares? It's science fiction, right? I gotta keep that in mind. I can't care about these things. So,
but also, what if they did do that? Like, what if they did just spit out like a
boy? What a bummer that would be. They come like walking very slowly back into camp. Yeah. Anyway, let's skip that grim scene. But let's talk real quick about what that means, right? So, we talked about, and I joked, I put it in the description of the last episode. Where do Mandalorian babies come from? Right. So what we know for certain is that they're a big adoption crowd. Right. They're all about. It's not about your bloodline. It's about which I should say. Not all Mandalorians think that way, of course, because there's a little bit of bloodline conversation with Bo Katan, who, her family ruled Mandalore, and so she feels in some sense that she has that right. But the whole Mandalorian thing is like, it's not about where you come from, it's about what you do, who you are, and if you take the creed, and you put on again, with this group, you put on the helmet, you don't take it off, you're a Mandalorian. It's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
So I assume that he means in the adoption sense, but I wonder if he is like his actual son. That would be interesting. But it's also weird that we've seen Paz Vizsla a fair amount, between seasons 1 and 2, and we'd never heard that he had a son. I thought that was an interesting point.
Well, I think it just begs the question: who's the lucky lady?
Yeah. Is it the armor, or is it Bo or Satine or Sabine Wren? I'm naming the only Mandalorian women I can think of. Sabine's mom. That's it. Those are the only ones I can think of. So I assume it was an adoption thing. But who knows? And I'm sure that-that'll eventually come to light. But I want to mention before, there were some cool character things with Bo, but before we get to that, I want to real quick say they changed the voice actor for Paz Vizsla, and I can't remember if they started this season with it had been Jon Favreau, who was a cool tie-in because Jon Favreau voiced Paz Vizsla, his, I assume, ancestor. I assume it's not like his brother. I assume it was his father or something like that. But he voiced Paz Vizsla in the Clone Wars, so it made sense to have him, do this other member of the Vizsla clan, whatever. I thought that was kind of cool. But all of a sudden here, I think last episode was the first time I noticed it. It wasn't the same actor anymore. And I Googled it, and I feel like not much of anybody was talking about it. And I found somebody talking about it, and their theory was that their plan is to have Paz Vizsla, take his helmet off soon. Like his identity is going to be known for one reason or another. And they felt like, if it's going to look like somebody, we can't have it look like Jon Favreau because he's not planning to act this part forever,
Right.
Like their point was a little bit of voice acting here and there. It's not a huge time commitment, whatever, but like if they expect him to be in costume all the time, that might be a problem. Now, I don't know if that's exactly the issue. My suspicion was
it's a pretty solid theory, though.
It's an interesting theory for sure. And obviously I can't say that it's wrong. My own theory previous to that was really just that he's going to be a bigger part of the show going forward. He's going to be more of a main character. So rather than, rope Jon Favreau into more and more and more voice acting, let's just recast it and kind of be done with it, So who knows? Yeah. One or both of those might be true. So
I feel like they could, this is more against the first theory, but like you could say he has a different voice with his helmet on. Vader has a different voice with his helmet on. So I mean,
that's a good parallel to draw. They certainly got away with that to some degree, but I don't. Again, if I had it to make myself, I probably would have just had James Earl Jones voice himself outside of the helmet too. But it doesn't matter. James Earl Jones talks a lot about how he's this, sort of like Mississippi farm boy, and how weird it would be with that voice coming out of like some other actor. That would be odd,
Yeah.
But anyway, all that is to say, it certainly was an intentional choice. Whether it was like Jon Favreau's too busy, or like we've got more coming. If this means something more, I don't know. But I thought it was interesting.
But
let's talk real quick before we sign off about Bo Katan, and Paz actually said that she was the leader of the war party. She had a moment that I thought was really funny where she's like, how do you eat without taking the helmet off? And he goes, or like around, how do you eat around other people? And he goes, you don't. Like everybody goes and finds their own spot and where they can take their helmet off and everything. And it reminded me of when you're the new kid in a school at the beginning of the school year and you're like trying to find who to eat lunch with, you know, and like you don't know anybody. Do you ever have that experience? We moved a
Of
lot.
course,
So
yeah.
like I had that like, you know, every few years, like totally new school system, don't know a soul. First day of school, it's like I have to either sit by myself or, you know, be an extrovert for a while, you know, which kind of sucks. But anyway, I thought that that was a funny moment and an interesting little thing. And man, there's so many questions. I want to just bring up right now. I think you and I should do a few. We should start working in between during the week some like shorter episodes where we talk about one item specifically for 5-10 minutes, because I've got so much that I want to say in these things, but I don't want our videos to run too long. But I want to talk a little about Bo Katan, where she's coming from, what her her interests are, and that sort of thing, because there's a lot I want to speculate on right now.
Yeah.
But moving on from that, they get back. They've rescued the kid, and by the way, Din was the one that like caught him, right? And Paz, of course, is very grateful, and there's a "this is the way" moment, and I loved that. Like, there are two things brewing here, right? So I feel like Din has got a lot of respect growing among people. Like Din has respect from like Bo Katan recently. I think that like her watching him and the way he interacts with like, their whatever religion and all that, like his seriousness about it and everything, and his like, he's a strong character too. Like he's good at being a Mandalorian. And also Paz Vizsla now, who like they're kind of at odds, and in the Book of Boba Fett, they fight over the Darksaber briefly, and so there's kind of this, like, I've wondered if there's going to be bad blood, but clearly that there's a moment here where they have like, hey, we're brothers still. Like this is the way, this is what we're signed on to. It's not about our personal interests and everything. He's still going to save Paz Vizsla's son because it's the right thing to do. And so I like the idea of the two of them becoming, closer and everything. And like I said, there's part of me that feels like Din has this growing respect from people around him in the community, but Bo Katan also does. And she kind of got the credit from the armor for the whole rescue, because she was apparently the leader of the war party or whatever they called her.
Yeah. She led that mission to go save the kid. That's why she got to eat at the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
anyway,
Bo loses a shoulder.
Yeah, the
side plate, like armor.
They call it a pauldron early on in the show, and I assume that's a piece of armor, but that's her shoulder piece. Yeah, you want to talk about that?
So she loses that in battle when they're rescuing, and then she obviously goes in the back with the armor, and she's wielding the armor is wielding Bo a new shoulder piece, and she gets to choose a symbol to go on it, and she asks the question, like, can it be a mythosaur? And then the armor is like, well, yeah, it's part of the religion essentially. Like anyone can kind of ask for that symbol.
Yeah, because her other symbol is the night owl, which is her like family crest sort of thing. So she's turning that down in order to get the symbol of all Mandalorians rather than just her own clan, which is, again, it's an interesting symbolic moment.
Yeah, the part that whole scene, the part that's confused me the most is she actually confessed to the armor that she saw the mythosaur, and the armorer said, "Well, we all see visions from time to time." And it's like, and Bo responded, "It wasn't a vision. I'm pretty sure it was real.
I really saw it."
And
that was
the armorer just said. Then she just respond like, "This is the way."
Yeah, this is the way. She's sort of like, I don't know if she's blowing her off or if she's trying to tell her, like, like, this was a vision and that happens. And like, that's what happens when you're like a real Mandalorian, like, I wonder if, I don't know. I wonder if like, this isn't real, if she thinks that it's not real, it's just something in her head or something like that. But Bo certainly is saying, I saw an actual creature alive in that cave. I didn't see a vision of it. I saw the real thing. Which is, to you and me, monumental. And it seems like the armor would have reacted more excitedly or something, but I guess
I wonder if she knows.
Seriously, she doesn't understand. Oh, maybe.
I wonder if she knows, and And I wonder if the religion has kept it a secret because they
Hmm.
don't want the power to get out.
Well, maybe it's the
Or
last
so, you know.
one. Yeah.
Or maybe it's the last one they're trying
They
to
don't want anybody
protect or
killing
something.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. But
Interesting thought. And certainly that's going to come up again, I assume, this season.
yeah.
But her getting the sigil of the Mandalorian, or whatever, of the mythosaur, the symbol of all Mandalorians, on her shoulder. There's this real theme of, she said a couple of times something like, we Mandalorians shouldn't be fighting each other. We need to unify, some of that kind of stuff. And like, that's sort of, I feel like that's what this symbol is implying too. And whether it means that she needs the Darksaber or not, I don't know, man. But she's seen this mythosaur. I really thought, like, to me, this meant that it was a symbol that Din needs to be the leader. But more and more, it feels like Bo Katan is sort of like building this, like, something's building for her, whether it's religious fervor or like a real chance, a real shot at leadership of the group. I don't know, but It's interesting, really interesting.
And that's the episode.
What's that?
I said that was the episode. That's where we ended.
Yeah. It was a lot, man. For what seemed like a really short episode, it was quite a bit. I did want to mention the little baby raptors, whatever, that they brought back. It's a little silly.
Oh yeah,
it was a little silly.
About that, yeah.
Din says like, well, or whoever, I think it was Din, said like, oh no, it was Bo Katan, says, we got some more foundlings for you, and she's like, is that so? And out come these giant baby chickens. It was sort of awkward, and they were way too big to have all been, fitting inside Bo-Katan's ship. It just looked silly to me. But that said, again, you got to kind of shrug your shoulders, whatever. And I assume, again, my theory is, they're going to raise these things for riders. They'll have people that ride these things, whether by the end of the season or if we see them in following seasons, I don't know. But certainly interesting.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So you have any theories for what we'll see next? Like what's the next thing? Because we had like a whole season away from a whole episode really sort of away from the Mandalorians, following what's his name, Dr. Pershing and Elia Kane, and they kind of left us on a weird cliffhanger with that and went back to the main storyline now. And so, are we going to jump back to those characters? What do you think?
What I'm hoping for is they finish all the storylines they're starting in this season. That's what I hope for. And I hope
you don't want to do the lost, way of making shows.
It's season 3, so it's right on par. The timeline of, I think consider that. I love Lost. It's actually probably a hot take, but I actually really love Lost.
We'll do a whole video about that where I harass you about it, but go ahead.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, it feels like all signs are pointing to this like gigantic moment at the end, and I don't have any speculations at the moment other than I just want them to, everything that they're surfacing right now, I want them to continue, and I want them to have closure or some sort of big epic scene towards the end, a couple of the last few episodes and stuff. So I mean, I think really I'm just excited for the ride. I don't really have any speculations at the moment other than just keep watching, keep listening to us.
Yeah. Well, I've said, man, I had a bunch of theories at the beginning of this, and I was pretty sure, like, I was like, I got this season figured out. And like by the second episode, like everything had gone out the window because they'd already achieved those things. I was like, so what happens now?
Yeah, if this was Nate's show, it would have been a 2-episode show.
Yeah. If this was my show, by now, they'd be like learning, like, well, like, what did the Empire do to Mandalore? And they'd be like digging through old Imperial files and stuff. But like, they really skipped the steps in my fake screenplay. But I'm excited. I'm super excited. And there's the amount of unknown that there is. It really it leaves a lot of mystery and excitement. So I don't know, man. Got a lot to figure out. Excited for the next episode.
Me too.
Yeah. So catch us back here next week, right?
Yep. And thanks for listening.
Yeah. All right. This is Pew Pew time. We'll see you later.
See you.